Shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining our class today. My name is Jadiel from the Fourth Angels Learning Center, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look to the seventh commandment. The seventh commandment. We're going to try to understand a little bit more deeper concept, but we're going to focus on what does it mean to commit adultery. Let's first go to where this is located. This is located in Exodus chapter 20. All right, Exodus chapter 20. We're looking at verse 14. And it's very simple here. Thou shalt not commit adultery. And in previous studies, we show clearly that it's the intent of these commandments is extremely important. Is extremely important in the keeping of these commandments. It's not just a matter of doing a specific act, but there's an intent and a motive that causes you to become guilty. There's an intent and a motive that manifests into an action. And we talked about that with each commandment, so it shouldn't be new. We're on the seventh commandment. So with that being said, let's see if there's any understanding of that intent outside of just Messiah's words. But let's go to Messiah's words first. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, and then this will prove that Messiah is not teaching anything new, but teaching what is in fact, in the Torah and in the prophets. Matthew chapter 5, looking at verse 27 to 32. 27 to 32, let's start here. It says, you have heard said by them in ancient times, you shall not commit adultery. So he's about to go into this commandment. It says, but I say to you, whosoever looks at a woman to desire, evil desire after her, have committed adultery with her in his heart. This is more specific as to understanding the heart behind the commandment, and that the breaking of the commandment begins in the heart pollution first. It says, if your right eye offends you, pluck it out, cast it from you, for it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not your whole body should be cast into hell. And if your right hand offends you, cut it off, cast it from you, for it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not the whole body should be cast into hell. It has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say to you that whosoever shall put away his wife, except for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her, that is divorced, meaning that is divorced without cause, also commits adultery. So he's not only showing us the importance of the intents of the heart, he's also showing us the importance of the covenant itself, the agreement or the marriage covenant itself, that the marriage covenant does not just get null and void. You see, there's a difference here. You have heard it said in old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. This is coming straight from Exodus. This is ancient times. But when it says here, it has been said, whosoever putteth away his wife, let him give her a bill of divorcement. That's not what it says in scripture. In scripture, it tells you what elements or what reasons you give a bill of divorcement for. But this is not what was occurring during these days. When you look in the New Testament, you'll see people, men they were divorcing their wives, they were putting them away for all types of reasons. They were not only doing this, but they were making null and void. According to Matthew chapter 15, what does he say? What does he say in Matthew chapter 15? It says, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Look at what it says here in verse 3. Why do you also transgress the commandment of Elohim by your tradition? So what was the problem going on? They were not, it was not Moses' statement, thou shalt not commit adultery, or the requirements that he had for the bill of divorcement. It was these individuals just saying, put away your wife and give a bill of divorcement. The Messiah is saying, You can only do it except for the cause of fornication. So the first thing I want to break down is, let's see, committing adultery in your heart, the intent in your heart, and having something so dear to you polluting you. There's this mental, there's spiritual adultery that occurs, and the prophets understood this as well. So let's look at what the prophet says. Let's go to the book of Hosea, then we're going to go to Deuteronomy. Hosea chapter 1. Look at what it says. Chapter 1, we're going to look at verse 2. It says, the beginning of the word of Yahuwah by Hosea. And Yahuwah said to Hosea, go take you unto a wife of whoredoms, and children of whoredoms, for the land have committed great whoredom, departing from Yahuwah. So what is he likening unto a wife of whoredom? He says, the land, Israel, there's a lot of whoredom that Israel is performing, and they are, what does it say here? Departing from Yahuwah. He's attributing moving away from Yah's commandments, Yah's statutes, Yah's judgments, moving away from his covenant as whoredom, as departing from Yah as well. Hosea says this again in the second chapter, looking at verse 2-5. It says, plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put her away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked and set her as it in the day that she was born, make her as a wilderness, and set her like a dry land, and slay her with thirst. I will not have mercy upon her children, for they be the children of whoredoms. For their mother hath played the harlot, and she that conceived them have done shamefully. For she said, I go after my lovers that give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax and my oil and my drink. So basically selling herself for what things she can gain. This is what the people of Israel has done, giving themselves to the nations, giving themselves to the practices of the nations, even though they go against the commandments, the statutes, and judgments of Yah. They go against the principles and the standards that he required them to have in order to have this relationship with them. So this is very important for us to grasp, because he's liking all of these things, and he's referring to Israel or Jerusalem as, Israel as a harlot, and the children or the people of Israel as children of whoredoms. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 12. I think this is pretty clear that this is not like a physical specific aspect to just committing adultery. This is talking about breaking the covenant, period. Moving away from Yah and doing your own thing, period. Look at what it says, Deuteronomy chapter 12. Chapter 12 in Deuteronomy, we're going to start at verse 21. We're going to look at verse 29 to, there we go, 29 to 32. It says, when Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall cut off the nations from before you, where you go to possess them, and you succeed them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you be not snared by following them. After that, they be destroyed from before you, that you inquire, that you go learn about these things from them, that you will go inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Look at what it says. Even so will I do likewise. Don't go following after these nations. Don't go leaving the requirements, leaving the standard that Yah has given to you, and going and adopting the standard of the nations, adopting the standard of all those people who do not serve Yah. It says, you shall not do so unto Yahuwah Elohim. Look at what it says. It says, you're doing it to him. You shall not do it to him. What are you doing to him? It says you're following the nations, that you're inquiring after their gods, that you're learning how to serve their gods, and then you're saying, I'm going to do the same thing as them. It says, you shall not do so unto Yahuwah Elohim. Don't do that to him. For every abomination to Yahuwah, which he hates, have they done unto their gods. And even their sons and their daughters, they have burnt in the fire to their gods. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. You shall not add thereto nor diminish. Don't add or take away from what Yah has said. This is very important because we're looking at what adultery is in the heart, how it starts. This is where Messiah was trying to warn us. It's not a matter of the final act that's manifested from polluting your mind and your heart, moving away your mind, moving away your heart away from Yah. He's saying this is what you need to do. This is what is making you an adulterer. You are turning away. You are moving away from him. And this is what he was trying to tell Israel in Matthew chapter 15 as well. Let's take a look. He was trying to tell them in Matthew chapter 15, quoting from the prophet Isaiah, this people draw nigh to me with their mouth, honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Their heart is going after other things. Their heart is with other things. So why does it matter what your mouth is saying and what your lips is proclaiming if your heart is far from me? So we have to understand this is spiritual adultery. This is what adultery is, moving away. So likewise, he took it to the level of even in the aspect of a relationship that you have with your spouse. He's talking about looking at a woman with evil desires after her. You commit adultery with her already in your heart. So this is the clear aspect. The physical aspect is that adultery is when you are pursuing or desiring a woman that's already married. When you're desiring something that belongs to someone else. This is why he likened this to following after false gods or following after the nations, because you're going after a bunch of people that belong to those standards, that's following after those gods. So their lifestyle is a manifestation of wickedness and wicked practices. This is why he tells us not to be unequally yoked, because he says, don't look at a person and seeing that this person is belonging to someone totally different than Yah. They don't belong to Yah. You are supposed to be involved with Yah's people, people who belong to Yah. So when you approach the nations, according to scripture, it tells you not to even go after the nations, not even to marry into the nations, because they are connected to other gods. This is adultery. When you look at a woman that belongs to another man, it is committing adultery when you're desiring them. So what did Israel do? They desired the nations. They desired to do the things that the nations were doing, even though they were doing it to their other gods. They belong to those other things. They have not denounced those things. They have not joined themselves to Yah. So they are committing adultery by you connecting yourself to the nations that connected themselves to those false gods and to that false standard. This is what committing adultery is referring to here. This is what he's telling us not to be careful of not doing. We need to make sure that we are not allowing our heart to be so distant from Yah's standard and then force ourselves to look the part when in actuality, your lips are giving him service, but your heart is nowhere near him. And if your heart is nowhere near him, you are nowhere near him. You are an adulterer. So the second aspect here, it talks about the divorce aspect. Let's look at how he's pursuing, he used, when we looked at the book of Hosea, he used Israel as an example of divorcing Jerusalem or the city and the children or the inhabitants of the city were the children. So the city that he's divorcing is Jerusalem. The children is the Israelites, the inhabitants of that city. So he no longer protects that city, which is why we see captivity with the Assyrians. We saw the captivities with the Babylonians. We saw the captivity. We see captivity all day long with the Romans, with the Greeks, because of the disobedience. He denies, not only does he not protect the city, but then he doesn't protect the inhabitants. This is the mother and the children. Paul makes a reference of this in Galatians chapter 4. So let's look at this. Galatians chapter 4 talks about the mother and the children. So look at this. Verse 25 of Galatians 4. It says, "For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and answers to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children," referring to the city and the inhabitants. It says, "But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all." So we have a city, Jerusalem, which is above, and it's our mother. We are the children of that mother. And the wicked city, Jerusalem, which is in bondage with her children, that's the mother that Yah is divorcing. Let's take a look at this. Let's go to Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah so we can see a little bit more. We read about this in Hosea, but let's go to Isaiah. Where is it? Isaiah 50. Let's look at 50, right? Look at what it says here. "Thus saith Yahuwah, where is the bill of your divorcement? The bill of the divorcement whom I have put away, who Yahuwah put away. Which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Behold, for your iniquities you have sold yourself. For your transgressions is your mother put away. Wherefore then I came, was there no man? Then I called, was there none to answer? Is my hand shortened at all, that it cannot redeem? Or have I no power to deliver? Behold, at my rebuke I dry up the sea. I make the rivers a wilderness. Their fish stinks because there is no water, and die for thirst." Look at what he's saying. Let me go back here to verse 1. He says, "Where is the bill of the your mother's divorcement?" Who is he talking to? He's talking to Israel. He's saying that their own sins have sold themselves into captivity. Their own transgressions has he put Jerusalem away. But then look at the contrast in chapter 51, Isaiah chapter 51. Look at what it says here. "Hearken unto me, you that follow after righteousness. Seek Yahuwah, look unto the rock whence you are cut, and to the hole of the pit where you were digged. Look unto Abraham your father," referring to the covenant, "and unto Sarah that bare you. For I called him alone and blessed him and increased him." Then it says, for Yahuwah shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all their waste places. So again, when you look at the people, the people were divided between the disobedient ones and the obedient ones, the ones who were not repentant and the one that were repentant. He allowed Jerusalem to go into captivity, but he's telling those who have repented or those that have remained faithful to continuously remember Abraham, their father, the covenant, and Sarah that bore them, their mother. And he says that he will comfort Zion. He will comfort her all her waste places, referring to their city. And he will make her wilderness like an Eden and her desert like a garden of Yahuwah. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, and thanksgiving and the voice of melody. Hearken unto me, my people. Give ear unto me. So he says, my people here. Give ear unto me, O my nation, for a law shall proceed from me, and I will make my judgment to rest for the light of the people. Let's go back to chapter 50. Where is the bill of your divorce, your mother's divorcement, whom I have put away? Did I sell you? No, your iniquities sold yourselves. Your transgressions, because of your transgressions, I put you away. So there's a difference between those who are in Israel that were obedient, those who were in Israel that were faithful. He refers to those who were disobedient as giving their mother a bill of divorcement, as putting them away. And he talks to those who were obedient as and comforting them, telling them that he will bless them after this time period. So many Israelites died because of their unfaithfulness to Yah. They did not have that protection. They had that punishment because of their wickedness. We can see that when we look at the story of Zedekiah, the preaching of Jeremiah, and we could see what's going on. Because even though they went into captivity, not everybody went into captivity. Even though there were some righteous people that did go into captivity, such as Daniel, Zechariah, Ezekiel, etc. But Jeremiah stayed back, and he kind of remained in Jerusalem, and he was blessed by Yah. So we see that committing adultery spiritually has to do with moving away from Yah's covenant, his standard, his way of life, the way that he says to walk, the way that he says to live, the way that he says to do things. Liken this unto your own relationship. If you're in a relationship and you come together and there's a certain standard that you guys keep in your relationship, when that standard is disconnected, there's issues. But when there's a relationship standard that's broken, such as fornication, like Messiah mentioned, that goes against the actual relationship directly. Why? Because it was through the act of intimacy. It was through the act of intimacy that it consummated the marriage covenant. So through that same act towards another, this breaks apart that marriage covenant. Now, of course, there still is forgiveness. You can definitely see Yah is extremely merciful towards unfaithful his unfaithful people. But to understand adultery is very clear, is to remove yourself far off. And usually before someone commits adultery physically against their spouse, they have to have their heart away from them. Their mind has to be consumed with their wicked desire somewhere else, rather than allowing their heart and mind to remain with their spouse. So this is what committing adultery is talking about: being unfaithful, being faithless, doubting, desiring other things outside of the standard that you once had. And I hope that this is clear. I hope that this made sense. And if there's any questions, please give us email. And we love to hear from you guys. I hope that you guys are blessed. Shalom, guys. Shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining our study today. I hope that it was edifying. And if you want to support this ministry, you can support us on 4alc.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube page. Click the like button and the notification bell. I hope to see you guys on the next study. Shalom, guys.